here with my girls.
Well, I think that we're in an amazing time right now. The woman is rising.
Started off with one person who said, I want to bring a voice to these issues.
Good.
I just want to empower you, if you're watching, to know that you can bring a voice to issues.
We say, woman, thou art loose. That means our suffering should end, don't you think?
Listen, we want to break generational curses. We don't just want to be loose so that we can be loose. We want to break generational curses so that my children aren't in the same chains that I learned to come out of.
The sacrifice of being heard really comes with being able to posture yourself in a place of humility.
But to really be willing to upset your world so that you can upgrade your world.
Yes. Be willing to upset your world so you can upgrade your world. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Woman Thou Art Loose presents Girl Talk. And I am here with my girls, my real girls too. I've got Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts and Pastor Cora Jakes Coleman, and they're getting ready to join me in a conversation that we need every woman to begin to have and to hear. So, hi girls.
Hi, Mommy Bear.
Hi, Mom. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. When we started talking just about what we wanted the women to take away from this moment, I was just so excited to know that not only is this going to be blessed and anointed and informative, but that the women are going to come in here one way and leave absolutely transformed. And I just can't wait to serve this vision. I know it's going to be phenomenal.
I can piggyback on the same sentiment. I know that this is going to be a chain-breaking experience. I know that it's going to be a spiritual enrichment, a physical enrichment, a mental enrichment, and I'm just excited for all the topics that will be discussed, not just in this Girl Talk, but just overall. I think this conference is going to be a monumental experience for everyone involved. So I'm looking forward to seeing God's hand on all that is happening at the Woman Thou Art Loose virtual experience.
I'm loving it already. Listen, so let's get right into this because something very, very sentimental to me is, okay, you know my birthday is August 19th, okay? So guess what? 100 years ago, on August the 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was finally ratified, okay? Empowering all American women and declaring for the first time that they, like men, deserve all the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. So that was 100 years ago that the government declared that as women, we have the same rights as men, which freed us to vote. Hello, voting's next month. So we're going to have to exercise our right to vote, of course, but the contribution of leadership of women in faith communities is even more paramount because we fight for equality, which had persisted for years, but we still knew that there was much room for progress. So faith leaders are defying the limitations that society has historically placed on us, and in politics, in activism, and also in society more broadly. So moving forward, we will continue to rise in all areas of public life, okay, get that part, and in faith communities in particular, as an integral part of the rising tide of women's leadership and the continuing fight for gender equality. Now, I know that this isn't a conversation that we usually have in church, but this is Girl Talk, and we want to talk about what's really, really going on. So talk to me a little bit about what you feel is transpiring, particularly, Cora, in the role of representation amongst women.
Well, I think that we're in an amazing time right now. The woman is rising. We've got the first female vice president that is going to hopefully be elected here soon. We've got women pastors who are going to be rising, and we've got CEOs that are coming out, and women judges. We've got lawyers. There is a woman in every high seat right now. And I think that represents just the strength of who we are. I think I was reading something the other day that said most of the countries that are doing well with this coronavirus are being ran by females. The woman is the head or the leader that is helping them get through that. And so I think that the role of the woman is really being emphasized and appreciated more now in this season than ever before, in every single industry. And I'm excited about the celebration of women. I'm excited about the celebration of Black women, specifically coming together, because we are often put against each other. We're often fighting one another. And so it's important, I believe, that in this time and in this season, women are coming together, women are taking their role, women are free to be heard. And I think that is a beautiful, beautiful thing that's happening in every industry we see. We're seeing a strong woman, and I think it's long overdue.
I forgot to mention that we might as well go on and deem this Girl Talk free to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's an incredible theme, especially with you talking about the 19th Amendment, because that moment in history was so important for all women. And I want to explain why. I think that was a moment in which women said, we want to be more than just seen, right? Because at that time, women were seen but not heard. And they said, we want to move into this stratosphere where we are seen and heard. And what's so powerful about that 19th Amendment ratification is that though white women were the primary sole beneficiaries of this ratification, there were Black women who were involved with that movement as well. And I think that really goes to your point, Cora, of us understanding the power of us coming together. Because Black women knew at that time that they weren't going to benefit from that ratification, but they also were able to connect the dots. That if I can get her in position, then once she's in position, I can push that barrier a bit further. And when I push that barrier, then eventually it leads to me. And I think sometimes when we are not immediately affected by the results, we don't engage, we don't bring our power, we don't bring our creativity. But I think that this being free to be heard means that I want to be heard, even if it's a whisper on one level, so that one day it can be a yell.
Yeah.
It's a progression that takes place when we're moving to seen and heard, and that takes time. And I think as we celebrate this 19th Amendment, to remember the silent heroes of that movement were Black women who understood the power of us all working together. And there's still so much work to be done when it comes to equality. There's such a pay inequity gap, even though we have seats at the table. Sometimes our seats are folding chairs and everyone else has executive plush chairs, just because of the way that the pay inequity exists. But I think that as we continue to be vocal and to encourage men to be vocal as well, you know, you've been raised by women, you've got sisters, you have classmates who were women and who were a part of your journey, and you would not be in position if it weren't for those women. So to see what we add to the table as worthy of being valued at the same level of what men receive, I think is probably our next step, is really making sure that equality shows up at that bank account as well. But I think to just look back at how far we've come is so powerful.
Yeah, and I think it's really important when you say that about women of color, because when you talked about the pay inequity that exists between women of color and our white counterparts, white women are paid 78 cents for every dollar earned by men. Black women earn only 64 cents, and Latinos only 54 cents for each dollar earned by white men. So when you said that about us being seen and not heard, I thought about that scripture where they keep trying to silence us with saying, let the woman be silent in the church. And they were actually talking about women yelling across to the congregation of men on one side, women on one side, and women yelling and asking their husband, what did that mean? And they wanted the women to just hush. And so now we're coming out of our silence about so many things that have haunted us for generations and generations: domestic violence, breast cancer, mental health. All of these things have plagued us, and we have just suffered in silence. When we say, woman, thou art loose, that means our suffering should end, don't you think?
Oh, man.
Absolutely. I think that there's such a power in being able to give yourself permission to be heard. You know, I've just been really I just turned 33, and I keep telling people this is my year of awareness. Giving myself permission to be aware of those fruitful things in my life, to be aware of those things that are strengthening, to be aware of my mental health, to be aware of my emotional health, and all of those things. As we're going through this pandemic, there's such a strength in just being able to say, I have a voice. And I can say something, and I don't have to be muzzled. For so long, we as women have been muzzled. We've been muzzled, or we've been pushed to the corner. And I think of Dirty Dancing, don't leave baby in the corner. You can't leave baby in the corner. And I believe that's what we're doing. We're rising out of our corners. We're getting the mental health that we need. We're deciding to give ourselves permission to be heard and not to be muzzled, and to move in just a mightier way. I just really feel a strong victory for women in this season like never before.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you, Cora, when you were saying that, I couldn't help but consider how that seen but not heard is really something that begins in our households. Mm-hmm. That when we are able to validate the voices of our children, then when they become adults, they're more confident in their voices. And I'm just thinking, you're probably watching this right now, and you didn't have any models, any representation when it comes to communicating about your emotions. What happens in this house stays in this house. But what happens when what's going on in this house is traumatic and it has emotionally scarred me, and I don't have the words to communicate how I'm feeling? I just want you to know that all it takes is one person to say, I want to take the muzzle off. I want to remove this silence that has been within our family by going to get help, by talking about domestic violence, by talking about our physical health and the dangers that we're at with our breast cancer and just women's health issues in general. And I know that this isn't something that we necessarily talk about a lot of times in families. It's so much easier to keep things surface because getting vulnerable can be challenging. But, you know, when I think about October and I think about breast cancer awareness and I think about domestic violence, something that has become constant in our modern history, started off with one person who says, I want to bring a voice to these issues. Sure. I just want to empower you, if you're watching, to know that you can bring a voice to issues. They may be talking about it in the world, but they're not talking about it in your family. They're not talking about it within your household. Just because no one has spoken up doesn't mean that you can't be the change agent, and you are free to be heard. That's what this is all about. Woman, thou art loose. Yes. We're seeing us break the ceilings in so many areas, but let's not forget to break the ceilings in our own households and to have those tough conversations. And it starts with having tough conversations with our health, with ourselves. I know Dr. Anita is going to be here throughout the virtual experience, and she makes me have so much faith in my ability to go to therapy and to be confident that I am crazy, and being crazy is okay sometimes.
Yes,
necessary. You to do the same.
When you said that about children and their right to be heard as well, I often worry about children that are in homes where there are domestic issues, and the child is usually the witness to a lot of the shootings that have occurred recently. We hear of young children being witnesses to their parents or their loved ones being shot or killed. And I think what's happening to those children now that they're isolated from their teachers, the teachers can't see their bruises, or if they're being beaten, the teachers can't tell anybody. And so I want our parents to think about, what are you doing to your children while you bicker amongst yourself? They're seeing and they can't say anything. But we've got to be careful what we allow our children to see in our homes so that when they grow up, they don't think that this is a generational thing and this is the same way that I have to walk. Don't you agree?
Oh, man.
Absolutely. As a children's pastor, even before the pandemic, I seen a lot of children come into the ministry just either being traumatized, having gone through the trauma of seeing their family fight, or tried to get in the middle of an argument and it went bad or horribly wrong. And so there is definitely, I think, children who are suffering now, but I don't think that it's that they never suffered. I think that it's being emphasized even more now because they're at home, and we were the home for them. That's the most emotional part for me, is that I was the hug for a lot of the children in children's ministry that weren't getting hugs during the week. We were the I love you, the keep going, the affirmations and things. And I think that sometimes as parents, when we are going through our own emotional things, we can tend to put our children's emotions to the back burner and not really see what's going on with them emotionally as well. And so it's just been really important for me. Like, if you're going through emotional anxiety, your child is probably going through a little bit of emotional anxiety, and bickering and stuff is not going to help it. And so what we've incorporated is 20-second hugs in my home. So whenever we get like we're getting too emotionally anxious or just down, someone will stop and say, okay, 20-second hug. And you've got to hug the person that's closest to you for 20 seconds. And it really does relieve a little bit of that tension. I think what you and Dad did so well with us growing up is we never saw you all bicker, argue, be violent towards one another at all. And so it really set a standard, a foundation of peace in our home. And so I think that this gives us an opportunity to challenge those mothers and fathers who are bickering to try to find a different coping mechanism, to try to find a different way to navigate through the friction and the upsets that are happening in the home, so that you can create an environment of peace, not just for you, but for your children. Our children, they need peace. If they can't get it at the church, they can't go to the schools, they can't have play dates. The only place that they can find peace is in their home.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I was thinking, even outside of being in situations where there's domestic violence, and there's so many layers to that, definitely we would want you to get to a safe place, even if that means kind of starting from scratch. Your safety, the safety of your children, is so important. And I think if you know someone who's probably being affected by a domestic violence situation, that perhaps even if it's dropping cupcakes on the porch or dropping off cards, to really let them know that they are loved, and that there is something that there's someone rather outside of the home who's thinking of them and praying for them, is so important. But as you were speaking, Court, even about that emotional anxiety, I thought outside of just domestic violence, that the pandemic and the racial unrest is something that we have to be talking to our children about. Mackenzie was watching the news with us one day, and she's 11, and it was just on as I was cooking dinner, and she started getting afraid because they were talking about the coronavirus in children. And I realized that this is happening to her too,
Yeah.
as nervous as we are, her life has shifted as well. She's not engaging with friends the way that she once did. She's in the house more than she has ever been. And so we've been talking about, like, how do you feel? I've been letting her know, like, you've been handling this very well. You've been so strong throughout this, but also giving her room to tell me how this is affecting her. And I don't think we can ever underestimate them overhearing adult conversations. I know they're kids and they need to stay in the child's place, but there are some things that seep into the child's place. And if we aren't there to help them filter and clean up what's seeping into that child's place, then we leave them to themselves to draw conclusions or to feel anxious and have anxiety. So to get down in that child's place with your children and say, what does this world look like from the perspective of an 11
Mhm.
years old. I have to wear a mask. I can't engage with my family the way that I once did. And how are they handling that? Teenagers whose lives have been changed. We have a 4-year-old who grabbed her mask because she heard her grandmother was coming. She grabbed her mask before going out. Now it's kind of become automatic for her. But what does that feel like? And I think that we have to be willing to risk our children being heard as well as we discover our voices so that we can break. Listen, we want to break generational curses. We don't just want to be loose so that we can be loose. We want to break generational curses so that my children aren't in the same chains that I learned to come out of. And that starts with us learning how to get out of our own chains and going back and looking at what's changed our children and saying, I think you're better than this, you're wiser than this is what I learned, this is what I discovered, so that we can each one teach one and lead us to a better place.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the sacrifices that come with our right to be heard, our insistence that that instinct for us to survive, there's a great cost that comes with that. And how do we embrace the freedom and the right to be heard, and then embrace the fact that we also are going to lose a little bit of ourselves, or there's going to be a sacrifice, a measure of sacrifice that comes with that?
Well, I think for me, the sacrifice of being heard really comes with being able to posture yourself in a place of humility. And so there is a sacrifice of being able to move yourself from knowing you're important, but putting yourself on the back burner so that someone else can lead ahead of you. It's such a strong, humbling place. And being able to put yourself in that place is, I believe, one of the first steps to being heard in general. Maybe not just women, but there's a power in being able to know that you are important and still place yourself in a position that may be lower in order to lift someone else up. And so there is that sacrifice of, I know I'm important, but maybe I can't be in this place right now, so I need to go to the back burner and push somebody else ahead until my turn comes. So there's a patience that you have to sacrifice, waiting your turn, waiting your season, waiting for when your voice is ready to be heard, because everybody ain't ready for your voice. Everybody's not ready for what you have to say. And so there is a patience in the process of getting people prepared and getting yourself prepared to be heard as well, I believe, for sure. So I'd say humility and patience is something that you definitely end up sacrificing and adjusting in order to be heard.
I agree. I think what you said about everyone not being ready for your voice to be heard is so important for people to understand who are watching today, because right now your world functions based off of one version of who you are. And perhaps that version is loving and kind, and she's there for everyone, so much so that she's already put herself on the back burner. But being heard for her in this season means that I'm ready to come to the front burner, okay? I'm ready for me to start getting my time. And what I would suggest doing as you're on this journey of being heard is to bring people along the journey with you.
Yes.
Sometimes we go through inner transformations and then we just present the finished product to the world that has functioned based on the old version of who we are. And I think to be able to communicate to your spouses, your friends, your family, your children, like I've been thinking lately about my own dreams, about what I want to do with the time that I have left. And this is what's in my heart to do, so that they're not surprised by this sudden volume going up with your voice. I think bringing people along on that journey is so important. And I think, like Cora said earlier, is to understand that being heard, there's a process attached to that. And it takes us being willing to say, okay, let me see how I need to function now. Maybe I can't cook dinner and build the business. Maybe I have to pick which nights I can do what. But to really be willing to upset your world so that you can upgrade your world.
Yes. Be willing to upset your world so you can upgrade your world. Yes.
We want to change, but we don't want to upset our world. I want everything to stay the same, but I want for me to change. But my world only functions based off of this version of who I am. So if I'm going to change, then it is going to upset my world. You got to know, what are my boundaries? What's too far? Okay, I'm not going to work past 8 o'clock. I'm not going to work past this time. I want to take Saturday all the way down. You have to determine, as you introduce your voice, this new version of who you are into your world, where are my boundaries? How do I want to present this? Where are the limitations? And most importantly, you have to understand that other people are free to be heard too. Which is, Forrest's point, not everyone's going to agree with it. Some people may question it. Some people may challenge you. Just because someone challenges you doesn't mean they're hating on you. Someone may come along with a challenge that expands your idea and expands your potential. Be okay with that. And that goes back to that posture of humility. But it is, whatever the sacrifice is, what is more painful is the idea of sacrificing your potential, sacrificing your anointing, sacrificing the kingdom. Because, okay, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to finish. That at the end of the day, anything that God's going to do in the world, he's going to do through people. He's using us. He's given us gifts, talents, ideas, ability to communicate and create. He's doing it through people. And so whatever you're doing is going to be establishing and extending God's reign on the earth. You're going to be a part of his kingdom. That book is kingdom. That nonprofit is kingdom. That ministry is kingdom. The business is kingdom. It's bait to get people into an environment that's different than anything that's taking place in the industry. Here we build people up. We don't tear each other down. Whatever that is, you just have to understand that I'm either going to sacrifice my place in the kingdom, I'm going to sacrifice that gift or talent that God has given me, or I'm going to sacrifice people knowing this one version of myself. Either way, there's going to be loss. You have to determine what is the greater loss and what you can live with when you get to them pearly gates. You want to hear God say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So I think we have to be willing to sacrifice and grow and change and upset so we can upgrade.
Upgrade. I love it. I think that when we talk about elevating one another, we are actually standing on our parents' shoulders, but in a way, our children are standing on ours so that they can be as tall, as strong, probably taller and stronger than we are right now. And so, Woman Thou Art Loose has been such a generational curse breaker that women that were your age started coming, but now they're my age and we're grandmothers, but there's still a liberating force that's happening in our lives where it's not like we're preparing to die. On my birthday, I felt like I am preparing to live again. Yeah. And, and so just blow out all of the sad candles and put up all of the droopy flowers because I'm not ready to die. I'm ready to live. And God has freed me so that I can do this. And if it took that woman in the Bible, that's the central figure of Woman Thou Art Loose, 30 some years of being bent and bowed over and looking to people to resolve her issue, it was her, what God said to her that liberated her. And she immediately stood up. What did you say? You stand up so that you can push up. That little spin on that word, we have to learn that what we have to do first is liberate ourselves. Because how are you going to free somebody when your chains are still jangling?
Facts.
And so I just want each of you to do me a finally, my sister, no matter what age you are, if you're talking to your daughters, if you're talking to your grandmother, if you're talking to your great-grandmother, there's a word that God has placed in your heart at this particular time for somebody that really, really needs it. What would you say?
For me, I would say it's not going to, your healing and your wholeness is not going to work if you're not willing to lay that pain, that shame, that embarrassment, that hurt at the feet of God. What I love about the woman with the alabaster box is that she put herself in a very uncomfortable position just so that she could have an abnormal encounter with God. And I believe that when we're able to put ourselves in uncomfortable positions, when we're able, like Sarah said, to upset our environment, when we're able to do that, then we're able to have an encounter with God that changes our life. It upgrades our life. That woman, when she was able to put her upset at the feet of God, her angers, her shames, her humiliations and everything at the feet of God, he gave her a go. And I believe that that is what God is giving us in this season. If we're willing to lay our issues and our tears and our crown at the feet of God, then he will give us a go, and not just a regular go, but a go in peace. And so that's what I would give to the sisters out there. I know some of my spiritual daughters are probably listening, aunties and all of the women out there. I would just give you a go in peace. Once you lay your things at the feet of God, give yourself permission to go in peace, not to go in pain, not to go in pressure, not to even go in the pandemic, but to go in peace, that God can be full in you, and everything that you laid out at his feet would be worth it, would be the thing that's in my heart today, just to give people a lay it at his feet and go in peace.
I love that. If I could say anything, I would just say that if you're watching this right now and you want to believe you're free to be heard, but you're afraid that when you open up your mouth, it's going to be like when we first wake up in the morning and our voice is like a little shaky and dry and a little bit incoherent. I think one of the most powerful things that you can know is that God uses voices that shake. That when we look back in scripture, and we see how he used Moses, and we see how he used Abraham, and we see how he used all of these incredible figures in the Bible. I'm hard pressed to find one person who he used who didn't start off with a shaky voice, that didn't start off unsure, that didn't start off uncertain. But I want you to know that shaky voices can still shake the world. And so when you're exercising this, using your voice, don't let the fact that you're afraid, don't let the fact that you're nervous, don't let the fact that maybe you don't even feel worthy sometimes keep you from speaking up and to going into rooms that maybe girls like us have no business being in, but God sent me. God sent you with your shaky voice. He sent you to raise that child. He sent you to be in that marriage. He sent you to build that business and to be that executive. God wants to use that voice, no matter how powerful it is or how shaky it is. And I hear God saying that the confidence you're looking for is waiting in the room you're supposed to be in, that you're not going to be confident going into the room. And that's good. You need to be teachable. You need to be vulnerable. You need to be humble enough that you are so dependent on him. And the more that you grow in that room and glean in that room, that your confidence is waiting in next, not in now. So if you're waiting for now to become confident, you may never go. But if you recognize that now is the only moment I have, so I have to move with what I've got, I got to move shaky voice and all. I got to move feeling unworthy and all. I got to move because I feel God pushing me. I hear God saying that the version of you who owns it, who's confident, who believes in themselves is going to be waiting for you, and you're going to collide with that person, and you're going to recognize that there was nothing wrong with being unsure. There was just nothing wrong with being still. So go, my sister, go in peace, go in power, go in anointing, go in trust, and go in confidence. We need you to stand up, rise, be loose, and evolve.
Oh my, that was a Selah moment. I felt that come right to me. I did. I felt that come right to me. And I know that there's been so many nuggets that we've shared, and we could sit around and we could talk all day, but the essence of what we're saying is that you are free to be heard. And we sing that song, Free to Worship. You are free. Your voice is free, and it's important. And I don't want you to think because there's millions upon millions of millions and billions of people occupying the earth, your voice, God knows distinctly from anyone else's. And your voice is important to him. It's important to the kingdom. It's important to your family. So I want you to walk in that freedom. I want you to know that he set you free, so you're free indeed. And exercise your right to be heard by going to the polls. Our ancestors fought for this right. You've got to show up because your voice has to be heard as never before. I'm so glad that I had a chance to spend some just girl time with my girls. And I hope that our relationship is echoed in the hearts of each and every one of you that are watching or listening, that you stop by and that we said something that will encourage you along the way. Remember, you are free to be heard.